Recently, I ranked every chapter in Super Paper Mario, but today I want to take it one step further and rank every single level. I'll be taking into account each level's theme, gameplay, boss fight if there is one, and story elements, as well as how much I simply enjoyed each level. This list is just based off my own personal opinions, so it will differ from yours, but do let me know your list in the comments. Number 32, 4-1. I was really into astronomy as a kid and was hyped to go to space for the first time in Super Paper Mario, but 4-1 always feels like hitting a brick wall made of molasses. Moving through space is neat for like 10 seconds, and then the slow, floaty movement drained all momentum out of the run. There isn't a real set piece to reward you for sticking with it, just sparse enemies and long stretches of nothing. I mean, I like the idea of easing players into the chapter's space theme, but the pacing turns mysterious void into empty corridor, and there's almost nothing redeeming about this level, except the fact that we're introduced to Scorps here. Number 31, 5-1. This chapter opener drops you into downtown of Crag, and while I love the aesthetic, dialogue, and the clash with the Floro Sapiens, the actual level layout is stop and go. You're introduced to the Cragnons and the kidnapping hook of this chapter, but there's just not much here. This level is well remembered for one thing specifically, and it's definitely not a good one. You see, to advance in this level, you need to find the sequence to hit 3 blocks, and that's not too bad. It just starts off normal enough with remembering something like a 3-sequence code, and then it ends up being over 20. You legit needed to write down the code and then make sure you didn't mess up or you would have to restart it. It's easy to see why this level is so low, like this was just added in more as a troll, and I get that it's kind of funny, but it doesn't make for a good level, especially in the moment. Number 30, 6-1. Face 100 duels sounds legendary, until you realize the fights blur together and the novelty fades after a handful. Kingdom has a beautiful Japanese style aesthetic and wonderful music, but the encounters are just too samey to justify the length. The script is funny the first couple times, but by the 10th time I'm just button mashing, and it's one of those moments where the concept is definitely better than the moment-to-moment play. I always wish this trial had more variety, instead of very similar Samurai guys that are either just bigger, smaller, maybe have a slightly different weapon. Luckily, you don't actually have to fight 100 Samurai guys in this level, and yeah, there's not much else here, but I guess the music is some of the best in the series, so there is that. Number 29, 2-3. The infamous Rubee grind. I actually love the concept of this, just because it feels so out of place in a Mario game. You break a vase and Mimi tells you need 1 million rubies to replace it. Now, you could do manual labor for 12 real-life hours to get the rubies, or you can just do a couple minutes worth to pay off a prisoner to get a code to then get a vault combo to get the 1 million rubies. This is a very small level, there's no enemies, barely any platforming. Its whole purpose is to be kind of silly, just like where I mentioned with the 20-digit code. It's kind of like that where the developers are kind of just trolling in a way. It's a great idea for a level, and I don't hate it, but it's not really a fun level to play through, especially after you play it once. I think when you add it up in this entire adventure, it's better, but looking on it on its own, it's just, yeah, there's just not much here. Number 28, 7-3. This actually used to be my least favorite level in the game, just because of how confusing and tedious it is. As a kid, this level took me forever to finish, and even now it's still frustrating to play without a guide. This level consists of you needing to wake up Peach with a specific apple, and unless you've already played this or looked it up, you're just guessing what apple it is. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad if the trees were easy to find, but they're all spaced out apart in this maze-like structure of 7-3, where every area also looks exactly the same. It's also very easy to fall all the way back down and need to platform back up, which can get pretty annoying. Is this the worst level? No, because once you know what you're doing, in reality it isn't that bad, but it's not a level I look forward to playing. Number 27, 4-3. This is where the Scorp Stargate errands starts to overstay their welcome. I like the gag with the space snack and the idea of choosing the right treat, but the maps feel a little copy-pasted, and it's easy to second-guess where you've been. Combat doesn't add much bite, so it becomes a navigation test with the long stretches of, didn't I pass this? The humor lands, the pacing just doesn't at all for this level. It's better than 4-1, but just feels like a slightly better version of what is, in my opinion, the worst level in the game. Number 26, 6-2. Back in Summer's Kingdom before the collapse and the void hanging overhead is the best thing about this level. NPC dialogue gets darker and the tension ramps up, but gameplay remains more of the same. I appreciate the foreboding vibe and the way the script teases what's coming, yet as a level, it can't escape the repetition and very short length. You go into this level, and before long you have a boss fight with Mimi, followed by the world being destroyed by the void and an appearance by Count Bleck. I actually really do appreciate this level for its contribution to the story, but ranking this level in a vacuum once again is just not great. I actually do like Chapter 6 more than I like the individual levels, if that makes sense, just because I like what it does for the story when looking at it that way. But the first couple levels, I'm not the biggest fan of gameplay-wise. Number 25, 1-3. This level isn't bad, but it's just kind of bland to me, and the weakest of Chapter 1's already not the greatest levels. You pretty much just walk across the desert, fight chunks, and then need to do a random button press on this blue platform. I don't even know how I figured it out at first because it requires you to press 1 and minus at the same time, which is something you would never do just unless you knew what you were doing. So I don't know what I did because I don't think I looked it up. It's just so random. And also, not to mention, you have to jump at a red tree 10 times. I just felt like this level was meant to have you doing random tasks to advance, and there wasn't much payoff. If I remember correctly, there are ways to figure out what you have to do, but it's kind of going out of the way, and doesn't really flow well with the level. Number 24, 7-2. This is where the Afterlife setting really settles in. I like the dry humor of the demon, the Bowser boss fight in this, but the back and forth can be a little plotting in this. When the chapter leans into weird mythic tones, it's great. Like with the Chain Chomp's RPG battle at the end, which is a reference to Cerberus, and the door puzzles, which are pretty funny. But then when it asks for another fetch quest step, it just drops off a lot. I also didn't like the platforming in the dark, and I know it's part of the theme here that you need to fight Bowser to get him back so he can light up the torches, but I don't know, it kind of piles onto some things that I just don't like about this level. Still has some positives though, but it has a lot of negatives too. Number 23, 6-1, well, the Void version of 6-1. Walking the ruins of Samur's kingdom after the Void hits is still a gut punch. As gameplay, it's almost nothing, but as story, it's one of Super Paper Mario's strongest swings. I don't replay it for fun or anything, but I actually do look forward to this moment just because it reminds me of when I first played this game and how shocking it was. Like, there's not too many times in a Mario game where there's just something that has this much emotional weight. Then there's of course the Mr. Elb robot battle that leads you to arriving in the Underwhere following this. Number 22, 1-1. A simple but perfect tone setter. Lineland Road has basic enemies, and there's really not much going on until you go to Bestovius and then you get the 3D flip. It's kind of like a tutorial, but it doesn't feel like it drags on, it doesn't nag you. It just has you press A and then you'll see quickly how this works. There's nothing difficult in this, nothing too advanced, but it just feels like a standard Mario opening level and clearly pays homage to the original Mario. Number 21, 5-2. This one picks up the Chapter 5 pace with more puzzles, and you finally get a hammer in the form of the Pixl Cudge. You need to explore the level to find 3 items to place in these spaces, and then input any word you want, which Cudge then repeats as he reveals himself. I think this actually may be the only moment in the Mario universe where a character can swear. This level isn't too memorable to me, except for the fact that you get Cudge. It's kind of a simple level design, but it's fine. After you get Cudge and break the block, you just go underground, and then that leads to the rest of the chapters, so it does tie in nicely. This is kind of one of the more mid-levels in the game. Number 20, 1-2. Mount Lineland keeps things simple, but I actually really like the rhythm it sets up early on. The highlight is definitely unlocking Thoreau, which is your first Pixl. With him you get the ability to pick up and throw things. That mechanic feels huge in a game where Mario's base jump isn't always enough. The level itself is mostly linear with a few spots where you need to flip and realize, oh, this is how 2D and 3D combine. Because remember, this is the second level when you're still getting used to the ability. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's a good teaching moment. On replays, I kind of autopilot through it, but the first time around, this is where I started realizing Super Paper Mario has more depth than a basic platformer. The music is also phenomenal here, and going into the background returns here from Thousand Year Door, which is a nice touch as well. Something about this town here always just felt friendly, and I don't know how to describe that. I always just like the vibe of this. Number 19, 2-1. Gloam Valley feels more like a Chapter 1 level, but once again with some great music and a nice art style. You can see a mysterious mansion in the background, which is what you're going to, and I actually kind of like how it builds up to the main setting like that, not just putting you in the mansion right away. It kind of plays like a more difficult version of 1-1, with a couple puzzles here and there, as well as containing the room where you unlock the Bomb Pixl Boomer. Overall, it's a pretty simple level with some basic platforming, but it's fun enough, and it's definitely an improvement on the kind of platforming you do in Chapter 1. Number 18, 5-3. 5-3 has always been a weird one for me. It's a level where you explore more of the underground with the Cragnons, and while I enjoy the quirky dialogue and the cultural clash humor, the actual layout feels repetitive. The caves don't have much visual variety, so I often feel like I'm going in circles even when I'm not. You meet Flynn Craggle here, who is a fan favorite, and then go on these minecart rides that just seem to go on forever, and also who else tried to actually walk across these instead of taking the minecart. Still, I do enjoy this level for all its faults, because it just feels like you're truly adventuring into the depths of the enemy's base. Number 17, 1-4. The castle showdown with Fractal is one of the first real highlights of the game. Up until now, Chapter 1 felt like a tutorial, but this level finally gives you a sense of scale and payoff. The castle is a decent dungeon crawl on its own, with puzzles that feel just complex enough to reward you using your new tools while also being simple as it is the first chapter. But then you get to the boss fight, which is flashy and cinematic in a way early Paper Mario bosses usually aren't. Fractal himself isn't a hard boss, but he looks incredible the first time you see him flying across the screen, and especially in 3D. It's one of the first levels where I thought that maybe this game will live up to the hype. Number 16, 7-1. I actually like the idea of this level more than the level itself. Starting Chapter 7 in the Underwhere feels so different compared to the rest of the game, and the rest of the Mario universe. The darker atmosphere, the mythological twist, and the sense that you're in uncharted Mario territory. So why is this level not higher up? It's because there's not really too much to do here. You do most of the work in the prologue to this level, and while it's still important for story reasons and it's still fun to explore, it just gets held back by its intro, which feels more like the main adventure than this. Number 15, 4-2. I've always had mixed feelings about 4-2. On one hand, it's a little livelier than something like 4-1 because there's more going on visually and you're introduced to new mechanics like the lower gravity and not needing to float around in space. You start the level by knocking on this bathroom door and learn whoever is in there has been there for a very long time, and all he needs is toilet paper. So the level consists of you exploring this planet until you meet this alien at the end who gives you an ancient scroll that you give to Philippe in the bathroom, and then he uses it as toilet paper. Philippe becomes your newest Pixl, and you use him like 3 times in the entire game. His design is cool, I guess, but he doesn't really do much to change the design of this level. You literally just go up to this thing, whatever it's called, and then just Philippe. This level, while simple, has some fun platforming due to the low gravity, so that's why it starts at our top half. Number 14, 3-2. 3-2 is memorable mostly for its gimmick. It's the one water level in the entire game. I kind of felt like the developers just wanted to make one water level and put it in here, and you know, I actually like it. You just got Bowser, who you will use a lot here to damage enemies with fire, and also you're literally underwater, so I don't understand the logic behind that, but anyway. You also unlock Luvbi here, which is a speedrunner's dream. The puzzles are basically just ground-pounding pillars in a specific order, so it's nothing crazy. I do like the part where you need to defeat all the enemies to escape though, and I also like the secrets hidden among this level. Also can't forget that giant blooper fight. Number 13, 3-1. This one is fun conceptually, but doesn't always hold up on replays. The introduction to Bitlands is cool because it plays with 8-bit nostalgia in a clever way, giving you retro-styled visuals and music. I love this as a kid because it felt like stepping into an old-school Mario game inside Paper Mario, but the gameplay is just okay. Lots of straightforward platforming with a few flip tricks thrown in, but there are some pretty big moments that carry this level. First off, almost immediately you meet Barry, who is a Pixl you don't actually get, or at least you don't actually get here, I should say. You have to go through an optional process to unlock him, and it was a pretty big surprise because when I first played this, I thought obviously I'm unlocking this Pixl. Then Francis, this green anime-loving lizard, who would later be referenced in Invincible, steals Tippy from you and you go on a rescue mission to save her. Towards the end of the level, you have to destroy these enemies' bases and fight Bowser. The fight is extremely easy, and then you unlock Bowser as a playable character, which is really cool for a Mario game, since the last time there was anything like this as a permanent option, and not just like TTYD where there were short segments, was Super Mario RPG. Number 12, 2-2. Even though it's early in the game, 2-2 has always stood out for me because of its spooky mansion setting. It's like you're sneaking through Merle's mansion, slowly unraveling the creepy vibe of Mimi, which is a cool tonal shift after the opener. The puzzles here are simple but satisfying, especially flipping to find hidden paths and realizing the mansion is trickier than it looks. I don't know why, but I always just love this level. There's just something mysterious about exploring the mansion and discovering its dark secrets. Number 11, 5-4. This is where Chapter 5 finally delivers on the tension it had been building. The Floro Sapiens hideout had a stronger dungeon feel with more puzzles and more enemy encounters that actually test you a little. It's also where the conflict between the two tribes peaks, and a twist is revealed that the Floro Sapiens weren't in fact the bad guys. They had their water poisoned by the Kragnons, and I remember the first time playing it thinking, finally something interesting is happening in this chapter. The payoff isn't as strong as the best finales in the game, but compared to how slow Chapter 5 starts, this feels like a good finale to the storyline and actually makes you feel bad about what you do because you have to defeat King Crocus even though he really isn't the bad guy. This is also the level where you learn about how Luigi is controlled. There is also some foreshadowing here as you get this leaf thing that you put on your head to trick the scanner, but Dimentio actually uses this to mind control Chunks, and then later on in the game this is used on Luigi. And this is also one of the few times in the game you actually have multiple boss fights in a level as you do fight Chunks and King Crocus. Number 10, 7-4. This is the finale of Chapter 7, and while it has some frustrating moments, I still think it's a solid way to wrap up the Underwhere and Overthere arc. The trek to the Overthere has a really unique vibe, almost biblical in its imagery with the Stairway to Heaven vibes and the more serious undertones. The platforming here can get a little repetitive, but this level feels a little more challenging than most. Well, except for the boss fight because it might actually be the easiest in the game. But then there's the story elements. Luvbi's role starts to pay off as Luvbi is revealed to be the pure heart and needs to sacrifice herself to help save the universe. Number 9, 3-3. I've always liked 3-3 because it finally gives you a nice mix of puzzles, platforming, and character interactions. You're inching closer to Francis's lair, and the build-up is really fun. The giant tree gimmick is here, and while I sometimes get annoyed with how much climbing there is, it feels less punishing than something like 7-3. The highlight for me is how the level balances atmosphere and difficulty. The dialogue and setups are funny, but you also feel like you're on a real journey. It's the kind of level where even if the platforming isn't flawless, the personality keeps me engaged, and this is also the first level where you fight Dimentio, who's another fan favorite. Mix that with the variety this level has in its design, and that's why it's a top 10 level, or a top 9 rather. Number 8, 2-4. This level is great because it finally cashes in on all the setup from earlier in the chapter. Mimi's mansion is in full force here, and the boss fight against her is one of the most memorable in the entire game. The way she reveals her true form is creepy in the best way, and as a kid that transformation absolutely freaked me out. The actual level isn't overly complicated, you're basically making your way through more mansion puzzles, but it's elevated by the story beats. It's one of the first levels in the game where the plot and gameplay feel like they're working together to make something genuinely memorable. This is one of the scariest Mario levels ever, or at least it was for me as a kid since Spider-Mimi was invincible just chasing you down this basement. Before the boss fight, you also participate in the show where you need to figure out who the real Merly is, and moments like this are just why I love Super Paper Mario. There's just so much personality here. Number 7, 8-1. Starting Chapter 8 with such a moody, stripped-down environment is just genius. You're walking through a dark castle, the music is haunting, and the tone shifts dramatically. It feels like you've stepped into the endgame of an RPG, not a Mario title. Gameplay-wise, it's not the most complex stage, but the atmosphere carries it. Minimalism is the point, and I think it works. I remember being surprised at how heavy the vibe felt, especially when you fight Ochunks' Bowser and the ceiling starts to collapse. Ochunks tells them to go as he holds up the ceiling, but Bowser stays back and helps him, and it has some great character development to cap off this level. Number 6, 4-4. This is the best part of Chapter 4, by far, it's not even close. After slogging through slower space levels, you finally get a dungeon that feels satisfying with puzzles that actually click and a setting that feels distinct. The layout, design, gravity platform things, whatever you want to call this, the pig enemies, this level is great. But of course, the real highlight is the boss fight against Mr. L and the Brobot. The first time I fought him, I loved how over the top it was. The dialogue, the giant mech, the music, it's just amazing, and the actual fight can be a little clunky, but it's just so fun and full of personality that I don't even care. 4-4 saves the chapter from being a complete dud. Number 5, 8-2. 8-2 feels like an extension of 8-1 in a lot of ways, where you go through Count Bleck's castle and end up with a hero saving the enemy. And while it is similar to 8-1, it gives off a lot of Merly's mansion vibes because Mimi messes with you throughout the level impersonating Merly. There's not too much more to say about this. I guess I like the puzzles better. It's cool how you have to escape this prison. And it's just a fun level to go through, and like I said, it just feels like a better version of 8-1. Number 4, the Chapter 7 Prologue. Now it might feel weird to rank something that doesn't even really have its own level name, but I've always loved this section. The descent into the underwear, the reveal of Queen Jadis, and the whole mythological spin on Mario's Game Over is so bizarre and unique that it left a huge impression on me as a kid. It flips the script of what you'd expect from Mario's story. There's also the creepy River Twygz, which could be the spookiest place in a Mario game. You finally get Luigi as a playable character here and utilize his jumping ability to progress. I just love this level so much. Like, I wish Nintendo would still do things like this for Mario RPGs. Number 3, 3-4. Francis's Fortress is one of my favorite areas in the game because it's just so ridiculous. The whole level just has these nerdy references, like the posters on the wall that reference Nintendo games, the way Francis talks like a parody of an internet forum from 2007, how all his maids are just cat robots. The puzzles inside the fortress are fun enough, but what really makes this level shine is the boss encounter. Francis himself is hilarious, awkward, and very obsessive over Tippy and then Peach. He's just so much different from any other Mario villain. Like, the Peach dating simulation sequence is one of the funniest moments in the entire series. It's just one of those rare levels that perfectly nails both comedy and gameplay. And I think I mentioned earlier that Francis wasn't invincible. I was actually reading the Invincible comics once, and I just randomly saw this random character with Francis on his t-shirt, even with his catchphrase high technical. Check out the short links below if you're interested in watching that. Number 2, 8-4. The final stretch of the game pulls out all the stops. It's longer and tougher than most levels, with a series of rooms that really test everything you've learned. There's a nice mix of puzzles, platforming, and combat, and the whole time the tension keeps building as you find which way to go. Then you get to the showdown with Count Bleck, and it's one of the best boss fights in the game. Just the atmosphere, the music, the dialogue, it all comes together perfectly. Following Count Bleck, then Dimentio comes out and he ends up being the true villain of this game as Count Bleck regrets his decisions. And then everything here where you defeat Dimentio and all the heroes come together as well as all the villains. It's just the moment where the story hits its peak and it feels like the epic finale the entire game was leading up to. Also the ultimate show, need I say more? And at number 1, 8-3. This is my favorite level in the entire game, and it's kinda close, but I had to go with 8-3 here. By this point, the void has almost fully consumed everything, and the level design reflects that sense of collapse. You're starting to fight tougher enemies, navigating through trickier puzzles, then you go through these crowds of just hundreds of Dimentios. They don't actually do damage, but they kind of move you if you're not moving. But the crown jewel of this level is the boss fight against Dimentio. Because remember, he's been controlling Luigi for a lot of the game, making him Mr. L. So Luigi wants to fight him himself. And before you actually fight him, you go through all the chapters in the game leading up to this, and this is one of the best moments in the entire Mario series. Like, I can't think of anything else like this, where you just basically reminisce through your entire adventure, trying to catch up to Dimentio, and it just reminds you of everywhere you've went on this journey. Every time I replay this game, this is one of the levels I look forward to the most, because it's where story, gameplay, and atmosphere all peak at once. And that's the list. I'm sure a lot of you probably have disagreements with this. There's 32 levels, there's no one correct list, and it's basically impossible for you to agree with everything here. I'm just ranking these levels individually here. I'm not taking into account other levels when ranking them. But if you do want to see my opinions on all of the chapters, go to this video on the end screen where I rank every chapter. If you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate you subscribing, as it really helps me out, as well as liking the video. Consider joining my Discord as well, as I'm trying to build a community there. And if you're interested in becoming a channel member, you could join for just a couple bucks a month. Thank you for watching Domainy, and I'll see you next time.